No one in the packed America's Got Talent theater that night knew the name of the quiet Filipino teenager standing backstage. He wasn't famous, he wasn't viral yet, and he didn't arrive with a dramatic entourage or flashy confidence. He came from Cebu, a city known more for its hardworking people than for producing global music sensations. As he waited for his name to be called, his hands trembled slightly, not because he doubted his voice, but because he knew exactly what this moment meant. For him, this was not just an audition. This was a once-in-a-lifetime chance to carry the dreams of his family, his island, and an entire generation of Filipino kids who grew up believing their voices were too small to be heard by the world. He remembered the sound of rain hitting the tin roof of their modest home back in Cebu. He remembered singing softly at night so the neighbors wouldn't complain. His father worked long hours, his mother stretched every peso to make sure food stayed on the table, and music was never seen as a safe path. Singing was something you did after chores, after school, after responsibilities. But for him, singing was the only time life made sense. While other kids played outside, he memorized old songs, especially the classics his grandfather loved. That was where Elvis entered his life, not as a legend, but as a voice that sounded like freedom. Backstage at AGT, he closed his eyes and silently sang a line from one of those old songs, steadying his breath. When the stage manager finally called his name, his heart felt like it might break out of his chest. As he stepped into the bright lights, the applause felt distant, almost unreal. 4 judges sat before him, including Simon Cowell, the man whose raised eyebrow had ended more dreams than most people could imagine. Simon looked at him with polite curiosity, the kind that says, "Surprise me, but don't waste my time." When asked about himself, the teen spoke simply. He said he was from Cebu, Philippines. He said he loved music. He said his family was watching from home, probably gathered around a small screen, holding their breath. The audience smiled politely, expecting another decent performance, maybe good, maybe forgettable. Simon nodded, already preparing for what he thought would be another routine audition. Then the music started. The first note that came out of the teen's mouth didn't just fill the room, it stunned it. It wasn't loud at first. It was controlled, smooth, and emotionally rich. It carried a tone that sounded far older than his years. People in the audience shifted in their seats. Heads tilted. Whispers stopped. By the second line, something incredible happened. Simon Cowell's expression changed. His skeptical posture softened, and his eyes locked onto the stage. The voice had weight. It carried pain, hope, and confidence all at once. It wasn't imitation. It wasn't karaoke. It was a voice that understood the soul of the song. The kind of voice that made people forget they were watching a competition and instead feel like they were witnessing a moment. When he reached the chorus, the power in his voice exploded. The audience gasped, some instinctively rising from their seats. This was not what anyone expected from a teenage boy who looked barely old enough to drive. As he sang, flashes of his past played in his mind. Singing at school events where classmates laughed until they heard him hit that one note. Performing at small local fiestas where old women wiped tears from their eyes. Recording covers on a borrowed phone, uploading them to the internet with no expectation that anyone outside Cebu would ever listen. All of it led here, to this stage, to this song. Halfway through the performance, a twist no one saw coming unfolded. The backing track softened, and he stripped the song down to near silence. Just his voice. No safety net. No distraction. That was the moment that sealed it. His voice cracked, not from weakness, but from emotion, and instead of ruining the performance, it made it unforgettable. The audience felt it. Simon felt it. For the first time that night, Simon Cowell smiled. Not the polite smile, but the kind that means he knows he's witnessing something rare. When the final note faded, there was a split second of silence, the kind that feels heavy. Then the entire theater erupted. People stood, cheering, shouting, clapping as if they were trying to tell the world they had just seen history. The teen stood frozen, eyes wide, unsure if this reaction was real or just a dream. Simon leaned toward his microphone. He didn't rush his words. He looked directly at the young singer and said something that would soon echo across social media, news outlets, and millions of homes. He said that voices like that don't come around often. He said there was something timeless about it. He said, half joking and half serious, that even Elvis himself would probably be proud of what he just heard. That comment alone was enough to send chills through the audience. For a kid from Cebu who learned English lyrics by listening to old recordings, hearing Elvis mentioned in the same sentence as his name felt unreal. The other judges praised his control, his emotion, and his courage. One judge pointed out that while many contestants try to impress, he made people feel something, and that is much harder to do. But the story didn't end with praise. Another twist followed when Simon asked him why he chose that particular song. The teen paused, swallowing hard, and then revealed something no one expected. He said the song reminded him of his grandfather, the man who first introduced him to music, who used to play Elvis songs on an old radio. His grandfather had passed away just months before the audition. Singing that song on that stage was his way of saying thank you. The mood shifted instantly. The audience softened. The judges listened differently now, understanding that what they heard wasn't just talent, but memory, love, and loss wrapped into sound. Simon nodded slowly, visibly moved. It wasn't just a good audition anymore. It was a story. When the votes came, it was unanimous. Yes, 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 yes. He was going through. As confetti didn't fall and buzzers didn't explode, something quieter but more powerful happened. The teen covered his mouth, tears streaming down his face. He whispered thank you, over and over, his voice shaking more than it did while singing. Back in Cebu, his family screamed. Neighbors rushed in. Phones rang. Messages flooded in from relatives, friends, and strangers. Overnight, the boy who once sang quietly to avoid complaints became a symbol of pride. Filipino communities across the United States shared the clip, saying this is why our voices matter. American viewers commented that they didn't even understand where Cebu was before, but now they would never forget it. As the show progressed, pressure mounted. Expectations grew heavier. People started calling him the Elvis of Cebu, a nickname that thrilled and terrified him. What if the first performance was the peak? What if he couldn't live up to the hype? Behind the scenes, he struggled with doubt. Fame came fast, and criticism came with it. Some said he was too old-fashioned. Others said he should modernize his style. Every comment felt louder than the applause. Then came another twist. Before his next performance, he lost his voice during rehearsals. Stress, lack of sleep, and emotional overload caught up with him. Doctors warned him to rest. Producers worried. Rumors spread online that he might withdraw. For the first time, his dream felt fragile. The night of the performance arrived anyway. He walked onto the stage unsure if his voice would hold. The music started, and his voice came out softer than before. Fear flashed across his face. But instead of forcing power, he leaned into vulnerability. He sang gently, letting emotion carry what volume could not. The audience leaned in, listening harder than ever. By the final note, his voice held. It wasn't the loudest performance of the season, but it was one of the most honest. Simon stood again. He said something that surprised everyone. He said that true artists don't just sing when it's easy, they sing when it's hard, and that performance proved the teen was more than just a viral moment. That night changed everything. Record labels called. Interviews followed. But the teen remained grounded. In every interview, he mentioned Cebu. He mentioned his family. He mentioned how America gave him a stage, but his roots gave him a voice. The finale came, and regardless of the final result, his impact was undeniable. He didn't just shock Simon Cowell. He reminded America that greatness can come from anywhere, that a quiet kid from a small island can stand on the biggest stage in the world and make it stop. Today, when people rewatch that first audition, they don't just hear a great voice. They hear courage. They hear sacrifice. They hear a bridge between cultures, generations, and dreams. And somewhere, if legends can listen, maybe Elvis really would be proud.